Hi everyone and welcome to this new episode of the Power series. Today our CEO Diana Verde Nieto will be in conversation with three amazing guests. Cath Kidston, the founder of our eponymous brand and of the creative studio Joy of Print. Fflur Roberts, head of global luxury goods at Euromonitor International, the global market research company. And Amy Christiansen, the founder of the conscious luxury fragrance brand Sana Jardin and member of the positive luxury community. We will also have the participation of Melita Hunter, the co-founder of Song Saa, the luxury travel brand, and another member in the positive luxury community. Before we start, I just want to let you know that you can submit your questions anytime during the webinar in the Q&A box, and we will answer them at the end. Over to you, Diana.
Thank you so much, Claudia, and good afternoon, everybody. I am incredibly privileged and honored to be with three incredibly accomplished women. So thank you very much for giving us the time today to share your experiences, like the power of new beginning. And, you know, we are now in the way out of this lockdown and slowly making shy steps towards regaining this sense of normality, whatever that means, into our lives. And you know, psychologically, a lot of us has the same kind of, as we went to lockdown and we have suffered all of these kind of, you know, insecurities and unknowns, getting out of it is the same type of anxieties. And if you're suffering this, you are not alone. Everybody's in exactly the same boat. That's why I'm very honored to have, you know, Cath, Amy, and Fflur to talk about the power of new beginnings. And I'd like to start with Fflur, really, because Fflur is the head of luxury research for Euromonitor. And how do you see the future and the future of the luxury market? And what are the big megatrends that you're seeing coming out of lockdown and the great pause, as they call it?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, to see what the future looks like, I think we kind of need to look at what the market was going through before the outbreak took place. So in the recent years, as probably many of you already know, the luxury industry has faced looming threats of a trade war, global economic uncertainty, shifts in behavior and values, and probably, again, maybe more importantly, huge advances in technology. And together, these were all, you know, creating huge challenges for both manufacturers, brands, retailers, but also, you know, for the consumer as well, knowing, you know, who to buy from, etc. But as we move forward, I think, you know, what this pandemic or the virus has really done is really impacted consumer confidence. Many fear contagion in the retail space, while, you know, there's many consumers out there that really don't feel, you know, that they want to buy luxury at all. And whilst maybe the wealthy consumers or the high net worth individuals of the world may not be feeling as squeezed as those in kind of lower income groups, you know, with a global lockdown in place and a ban on, you know, travel. And I think, you know, especially in an industry that's one of the most globalized in the world, and one that also just relies so heavily on the aspirational kind of store-based experience of the industry or of luxury, we believe that the luxury industry overall will actually be one of the hardest hit in terms of the industries that we cover. So we did some research at the beginning of, well, end of Q1, beginning of Q2, to look at how the industry might pan out by the end of the year. And at the end of the research, we predict that kind of on the base level that the luxury industry may decline by 18% by the end of 2020. That said, obviously some categories and areas are probably likely to be hit worse than others. So most of that 18% will be, the contraction will be seen in things like luxury cars, the experiential side of luxury, so luxury travel goods, luxury travel and hospitality, and luxury food service. Similarly, luxury alcoholic drinks, so things like champagne, fine wine, luxury spirits, also may kind of have a longer term impact, whilst On the personal luxury side, so your fashion, your leather goods, they may ride this storm better owing to I guess the affordability, the wide pricing platforms, also a revival that we're already seeing, especially in Asia or amongst the millennial Chinese consumers, the middle class consumers, and the Gen Zs of the world, but also owing to the strong digital platform that personal luxury has. That said, obviously 2020 is expected to be a year of deep recession. So I think even though, we are seeing some lockdowns being lifted, I think the impact overall, will be huge globally.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Fflur. And I'd like to move to Cath. I mean, Cath, where do you draw inspiration? I mean, you have built an iconic brand, Cath Kidston, which you very successfully exited. And now, you started again. With the joy of print and doing something that you do really well, which is like this idea of inspiring us through beautiful drawings and beauty, basically. So where you draw your inspiration and how it feels to start again, and tell us a little bit more about the joy of print.
It's an amazing journey, having come from a tiny shop way back when I started my business, like one corner shop, into something where we employed thousands of people and global shops and things. And in the end, I realized I'd become part of a big machine, and I'm probably quite an independent person. And it's when you get into a bigger company, it's all about process. A lot of it is about process, isn't it? And I really miss the creative and the design and actually having time to think about things. And I didn't really realize how much I missed that till I left. It takes a long time to work up a decision. I left and thought, and then I thought, great, I moved house, I decorated my house, I could go to exhibitions, travel, all the things you dream of doing, or I did when I worked every day. And then this most strange thing happened that I'd go somewhere, like I went on a trip to India, and realized the reason I love doing all of that is to create ideas. I got all these ideas and I had nowhere to put them. And that I needed to go back into doing something. And I'm not a fine artist. I'm not just making a painting or something like that. I love retail. I played shop as a kid. It's in my DNA to do some form of retail. But I think the choice now, it's amazing to kind of be able to think about what's important. And for me, the creative aspect is absolutely the top, and the power of an idea and sticking to the power of that idea. And then the framework that comes around that follows on rather than driving the product. I don't know if I can explain this very well. I have a very dyslexic mind, but I visualize it all. And I have this very naive belief that if you put enough into something and care enough about it and try to do your very best, hopefully someone else will appreciate it if it's done for the right reason. And so starting again is a complete joy, but obviously very different. And this time, when I started my business, I didn't intend to grow it. It organically grew faster than I could imagine. And this time I actually purposely want to keep a small company. And I think, it's really interesting where companies are going to think about growth going forward. Where do we need growth, and where is growth healthy, and where is it purely for financial gain? What we need growth to make a business exist, to pay our wages, to help our staff grow, but what's the need of growth for growth's sake? And it's sort of really interesting to start again thinking it's about quality product, defining the boundaries of what's correct, and all of that kind of thing. And for me, that's incredibly exciting. I've got the freedom right now to choose which way we go with the company. I can team up with artisan companies that I really respect, do my design bit. I hopefully know about print and design, but I wouldn't say no about making a beautiful fragrance or, whatever, all these different things. So therefore, it's taking up my company's skills and teaming up with other artisans. And that feels like a great collaborative way to work. But it's all about values and that kind of thing. It's a great, great moment to be, for me, it's a luxury actually, lockdown, very spoiled because I've had time to think more. You know, normally the thinking is done in the bath or when you have a walk or whatever it is. And now I can think a lot, which is such an incredible luxury, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the silver lining of the pandemic, the fact that a lot of us didn't have enough time to think. And I think this reframing of the great pause is so profound, because it is really that it gave us the opportunity to pause and think what's important, what's not important, and also how do you want to grow your business, but also on a personal level, how do you want to grow yourself and do all those personal development kind of journeys. And maybe you arrive in the same place that you were before, but the point is now you have mindfully been in the present. And you know, Amy, you have been incredibly successful at really kind of slow fragrances, like, you know, taking the time, handpicking. So how do you adapt it to this new beginning, and what do you think it's going to happen post-pandemic?
So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be a part of this conversation. So as a business, the way that Sana Jardin has adapted, and I think for the benefit of people listening, I might just give a couple of lines about what we do. So Sana Jardin is a luxury perfume company that's based on a circular economy. So we take the waste from perfume production and we give that back to the women who harvest the flowers so that they can create their own micro enterprises out of it. So it's an alternative business model that to me is really the fusion of luxury and sustainability. So as a business, you know, we needed to pivot very quickly, like I think many businesses in the beginning of the pandemic, to a digital model. Fortunately, we already 20% of our sales came from our website, which is high in fragrance, but we needed to really shift our focus to try and raise awareness about our product in order to keep the business alive. And you know, I could go into the details of the other things that we did in order to keep the business alive, you know, cutting costs across the board, and going into a cash preservation model, a loan that we got from the UK government. But in terms of philosophically, you know, we're really, I think like many businesses, we're thinking about digital, working with different influencers. How can we sell scent online? Because scent by definition is a very personal experience. So how do you sell it online? You know, having digital consultations on our website. But for me, going back to Diana, what you said about, you know, these moments of reflection and the great luxury that we've had with that, for me, this has really been an opportunity on a professional level to go back to the core DNA of our brand and not get lost. And in a way, back to your point, Cath, about, you know, it's easy to get caught up in the speed of trying to grow a business because we have, you know, we have investors that we need to satisfy. We have a lot of people who've made financial sacrifices. But for me, I think one of the most exciting things that has come out of this is to go back to the core DNA of the brand, which is to be a vehicle for social impact. And you know, probably a lot of people on this call don't know my background is in social work. I was a social worker. I worked in the nonprofit sector for 25 years before starting this business. And so the purpose of the business was really to help people at the base of the supply chain. It was not just to create a beautiful fragrance company. It was to show that we can create an alternative business model that's a win-win for everyone involved. So for us, you know, so we established a cooperative in Morocco for the female flower harvesters. And with them, you know, it's a great lesson in resiliency, because for them now, I'm so thrilled because we have been able to start the process to successfully retrain them so that they can make masks. So now they have their line of candles, they have their line of orange blossom water that they sell. That was the original business that we've had for 2 years. They're micro enterprises, but now they have a third business, which is making masks, and so they will increase their revenue and their skill set through that. So that is something that I'm really excited about. I mean, I'm personally energized about that, because again, it's given me the opportunity to come back and think, you know, why did I start this business? I started it so that I could be helpful to people, so that I could use it as a vessel for change. And I think and it goes to show how adaptable every single person on planet Earth is, and how humanity is so adaptable. And I think that's very heartening. The second piece for us, for Sana Jardin, is trying to, again, use our platform as a way to build back better. And as an American, you can hear from my accent, something that I'm very focused on right now is the protests in the United States, and examining, you know, what we're doing as a business and how we could be more supportive of that movement and more supportive of Black people gaining influence and power, and trying to combat systemic racism that I know myself I have overlooked, despite having worked in those communities for many years in a direct practice setting on the west side of Chicago. So for me, I feel like Sana Jardin, this is an opportunity for us to go back to the root of why we started, and build as many platforms for social impact that we can through this vessel.
Thank you, Amy. And from a purpose brand to another purpose brand. So Melita Hunter from Song Saa will share some of her experiences with us. And she's got a fantastic resort in Cambodia, which is incredibly mission-driven and purpose-driven. Over to you, Melita.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Melita Hunter. I am the co-founder of Song Saa. Well, for us, you know, there are, like so many people around the world, there are practical implications, financial implications, commitment to staying open and keeping everyone employed throughout this time has been a commitment, but also challenging with little to no revenue. So working with the staff on reduced working hours and keeping the doors open and being ready to welcome guests as they start coming through. Our work with the local communities, our environmental regeneration programs, this has all been impacted. However, on the flip side, it's also forced us to pause. We don't give enough emphasis to the importance of pause and the effect it has on processing power. We pause in communication, specifically to allow people to process, but we never do it in business. I really think the travel industry and travellers will need to resist the urge to go back to high quantity, low budget, tick box travel, which equals wealth accumulation for suppliers. If we are to sustainably manage travel, we need to reimagine growth. I think leaders in the industry and leaders who are consumers will be creating pathways here and reimagine growth so that others can follow. Companies will need to lead here, and this is not going to be easy. There are still a lot of large brands in the game that are purely wealth acquisition driven. However, this provides a real opportunity for the independent brands to rewrite the game book.
Thank you so much, Melita, and thank you so much, Claudia, for organizing this, because I wanted to share with you a little bit about the travel industry and how they are, although very badly affected, still keeping to this mission and the purpose very core to the business. And I think a theme that is appearing to this is about reimagining growth. So I want to ask you all, I mean, with this in mind, where do you find the strength to start again, to reimagine in business and, you know, kind of doing the same but better? I'd like to start with you, Cath, if I may.
To me, there's no choice. It's like, it's so in my DNA to be doing what I do. And it was only by stepping away from it and not working for a bit, which was the first time from when I was 17 to when I left, when I was 58, it was the first time I'd stopped working. And I didn't realize how much I would miss it. It's just a necessity. And so therefore it's really a privilege and a luxury to be able to work and have a sort of, be able to set up a company of my own, be creative and so on. It's a complete joy. I mean, because my aim is always to try and do the best, and I never feel I've quite got there. It's this mountain that's a very kind of wonderful, very challenging thing to do, but it's the ultimate goal. I still am on that path, trying to get where I'd like to be, and it's not a financial path anymore. It never was actually in the beginning either. It's much more about getting to that point creatively where I'd like to feel I've done something that I've kind of got there, and it's never quite right. You know, it's always wanting to improve and so on. So that is what motivates me. It really does. You know, I've been looking at prints this morning with the team, and everyone luckily is still working. We have the whole company. There's only 6 of us, but we're all still working full time. And to be able to work on prints, and we're talking about, let's change this leaf 0.5 centimeter, do whatever, you know, all the details and the thing that goes on. That's the lifeblood of what I do. And I need to make the business sustainable, which means paying people salaries. That's the goal. But I'm always very saddened by, I work with a lot of small companies setting up, young, very talented, very ambitious people. And so many of them are already wanting to look at the exit plan and the growth strategy before they've really got the foundations going. And I really feel it's such a shame, always looking for this commercial growth and not actually thinking about what's the authentic, real foundation of a business first. And so I think starting again gives one an opportunity to reset the foundations, be totally proud of what one's doing. It's exciting and it's a privilege. So for me, it's not a difficult thing. It's a real luxury actually to be able to do it. I don't know if I'm making sense about it, but I just feel to do something you really love and you really care about and put everything into it, the result then is out of one's hands. You just do your best and you see what happens. But it's an incredible thing to be able to work like that.
Absolutely. I think now than ever before, this idea of impact is very important. And I think that is in the minds of most CEOs today. And people are rethinking about, it's actually good to have a strategy to do the same thing that you used to do before. I mean, maybe that's not actually an option. So I think you're not alone into going through this path. And the same question goes to you, Fflur, in terms of, you know, you work for one of the most iconic, market research companies, but you need to find the strength in terms of like how to find, you know, keep motivated and keep going to work and keep wanting to do all of this. So you sit in a slightly different side, but it's as important in terms of like, where do you find the strength?
Well, in terms of an industry point of view, I think a lot of the strength will come from sort of going back to, you know, what Amy was talking about the sustainability aspect of luxury, putting people before profit. So I think one thing this pandemic has really done is expose those brands that are profit driven. And I think that's something that, you know, so those brands that are more sustainable and put people before profit, I think Diana, you're the expert here, but I think those companies may have benefited or may come out better than others. And I think that's something from the industry side is great to see. And on a personal level as well, it's really kind of rewarding. seeing that there is good coming out of this, as much as the situation is terrible and nobody could have predicted this. There are lots of positives in this. So I think from the sustainability aspect, I think that's something that hopefully will drive us all forward. And people sort of, going back to also what Amy was saying about what's happening in the US, I think that's, again, I think all these things are being brought to the surface. So that's kind of very positive moving forward. And I think also kind of the wellness aspect as well, kind of, again, this is an industry-wide thing, but also on a personal level as well, thinking about your own health and wellness, and looking at how you've been, obviously how the industry and the world is behaving, but also how you have behaved, how you've been behaving as well. And again, sort of on the digital side as well, I think that's something that, moving forward, those brands that have had strong digital platforms in place and have been able to create dialogues, or already had those in place to be able to communicate with their customers and create a dialogue and give them a platform as well to to express how they're feeling as well. I think that's been really important. So
thank you, Fflur. I mean, I just wanted to kind of clarify. I mean, profit is not bad. We are a for-profit company, and you need money in order to grow and to pay your people and to keep everybody employed and to do, marketing and to do goods and to keep investing into your products and services. So profit is not a bad thing. It's what you need in order to maintain a business. What I think it has been questioning or in question nowadays is the speed of growth. So is this idea of double-digit growth every quarter, no matter what, which is not the same about profit. Profit is how companies should be valued, not about this idea of constant double-digit growth every single quarter. And I think we kind of have to reframe that, because, I mean, profit is what we need in order to maintain an economic balance. If we take COVID right now and if we look at the absolute horrific, I guess, state that we are going to, one of the deepest recessions since 1930s, and the fact that, I mean, we discussed this yesterday, the worst is yet to come, when people have to be out of furlough and companies will be presented to very tough decisions to make. And I think that, we need to have a different type of capitalism, but I mean, we are a for-profit company. I have absolutely no shame on that, and I'm very proud of that. And I think we need to have that a healthy bottom line, in order to be able to support our people and employ more people and grow the business. But I think this double-digit growth is what is still in question. I mean, Amy, what's your experience on this?
Yes, I 100% agree with you. I think for me, my personal experience, again, having spent, I first started working in the nonprofit sector when I got my driver's license when I was 16. So for actually 30 years now. And for me, spending, actually all of those decades in that world and seeing that actually we need to harness the power of business and harness the power of commerce to create social good. That was the driving motivation for me to start Sana Jardin, because I saw that that might have a greater impact than more traditional philanthropy. And I think, I think stakeholder capitalism is extremely important right now, where I hope that companies can start to work towards creating profit, but also embedding more humanitarian, ethical, and eco-friendly practices into their business model. And I personally see that that's where the world is headed right now. I mean, I'm not an expert in trends, but to me, that's what I see happening and what I hope happens. And then I think it's also been a great lesson in the power of trade, the power of commerce right now, watching what's happening with COVID-19, where when the world stops, I mean, this is where really, you know, there can, if people need money to progress, people need to, you know, have their salaries, pay their rents, otherwise there's going to be civil unrest in the worst case. So for me, you know, I feel extraordinarily passionately about the fusion of social impact values and business, and then in terms of, you know, what's inspiring, or what, you know, what is giving me strength right now, there's two things. One is, again, this pivot to digital on a very, I feel like I have to operate with two heads. One is my nonprofit head and one is my business head. And so on a business level, you know, something that is giving me strength and motivation is, you know, to your point, Fflur, digital sales, digital opportunities. Our web sales are up 1,111% from last year at this time, which I think speaks to, you know, I have been reading articles about consumer behavior after SARS and how the move to digital, it never really stayed. And so for us, that's a huge focus for us. But on a personal, you know, if I put my nonprofit cap back on, I think, oh my God, this is such an incredible opportunity to use whatever platform we have, you know, for me now as a business owner, to be of service and to examine how can our business best be of service, and not just necessarily with our original social impact model of empowering female, you know, flower harvesters to be micro entrepreneurs, but in all other aspects and all other touch points. And I look to business now in many ways to be the new gatekeepers of society, because there's a lot of government bodies, sadly, recently that have disappointed and have let us down. So I think consumers are looking to businesses, and I think we have a unique, beautiful, exciting platform to be of service.
Yeah, I mean, certainly some governments is not going to do it, and let's face it. And before we jump onto Q&As, I like to kind of finish this conversation with what would be that piece of advice that you will be giving to people in terms of what, you know, how to start, what's that new beginning. So Fflur, I would like to start with you. Which advice would you give people to start again?
I think ensuring you have a strong omni-channel in the first place. I think obviously, you know, it's obvious that those brands, whether you're from a retail point of view, but also from a communications point of view, I think that's been paramount for brands to keep that relationship open with their customers. I think wellness is a big aspect moving forward. Sustainability, or again, you know, the issue of kind of looking at the wider picture, and not saying profit is a bad thing by any means, but you know, if we look at, you know, Song Saa, the wonderful resort, the luxury island that we just heard about. I mean, if you think of how much of that local population, if not possibly all the population living on that island, are actually supported by this company. So, you know, that's huge when we look at, you know, the bigger picture. So I think that's again something that needs to be addressed moving forward. So maybe probably in the luxury industry, it's more looking at your supply chains, looking at localism, looking at where your products are made. And yeah, I think probably the most important thing moving forward, I think, is, I mean, the luxury industry was already becoming more empathetic, but I think moving forward, I think, you know, more than ever, the human element and the human touch is more important, whether is still through digital, you know, is a wonderful way of communicating, but I think that human touch needs to be there. And, you know, we'll be craving that human touch even more so now than kind of ever before.
Thank you. Amy?
I couldn't agree with you more, Fflur. You said it perfectly. I think that the human touch is of critical importance. The challenge is how do we touch, how do we show touch, how do we touch one another in a world that looks like it's becoming more digital. Yeah, but I agree with you. I think the human touch, and I think for me, the advice that I would give people starting out is that, Diana, is that for business owners or is that for re-entry post-COVID? Is that what's the, sorry, that anyone? So for me, I think, oh gosh, I think for individuals, my personal advice would be, I think that many people have used this as an opportunity for self-reflection. But I also think right now that there's a lot of judgment in the world, and I would hope that this is an opportunity for people to try and become less judgmental. And I think I want to believe, I see it in my networks, that people are trying to become the best version of themselves, whether that, and I hope that that has a ripple effect into their businesses. And then in terms of for businesses, for people starting out for reentry, Fflur, I echo your opinion. It's human touch, it's digital, and I think it's building more humanitarian values into the supply chain.
Thank you. Cath?
Yeah, I love what you all said. I totally agree. And sort of thinking back, you know, it's not that I'm against profit at all. It's about sustainability with profit, and how is one creating profit for the right motive? Is it for long-term gain or short-term gain? We all know when it's healthy and when it's not, that kind of thing. So I would say starting out or getting back into the market, whatever it is, there's so much about, to me, that's important, is about setting the foundations correctly. Really being clear that one's values, one's structure is absolutely clear and right for what one intends to do. And simplicity here is really important, isn't it? You know, they say should be 5 things you do is the most you can do really well at one time, I've always been told. But keeping it very simple and very clear, and thinking with this sustainable approach, and actually, I mean, I honestly think the simpler the better, the clearer. Everyone knows, you know, yes, digital is going to be so important. The human touch throughout, yes, but that should always be, you know, I mean, but we'll communicate in whatever way communication becomes, but it's always going to be about human values. And that's the thing we have to really check and be careful about, our values, I suspect, in what we do. And it's a great opportunity. There's so much hope right now and so much fear, and it's very polarizing. And it is very sad. The situation in the world right now, not just America, everywhere, all the stuff that's going on. I've stopped watching the news. I can't really kind of cope with what I'm hearing out there. I mean, it's really scary, isn't it? But we have to do what we can do with our own values in the best way we can. Any business starting up. And it's a wonderful thing to be creating jobs, creating our little mini communities amongst ourselves, and it mushrooms from there. So, you know, that's my thoughts.
Thank you so much. Well, we've got quite a bit of Q&As and not much time, but I will do my best. This is a question to Fflur. What about the future of luxury beauty in the post-pandemic world?
So this is a very interesting area. I think beauty, so across beauty would fall into our personal luxury category. And I think many times of recession, I think that's one element that does actually benefit. It's literally the lipstick index or the lipstick effect. So where, you know, we might be feeling a bit low, so we might not be able to go out and buy a luxury car, but we can buy a lovely luxury fragrance, for example, or a luxury lipstick, or, you know, something that just to make us feel good. But I think moving forward, I think kind of longer term, I think all categories will be impacted, and it's probably going to be at least until 2021 before we kind of see the market kind of leveling out. In terms of the actual act of, you know, the retail aspect of beauty, I think that will change forever. I mean, I don't think we will ever go back to a day where, you know, you walk into Harrods beauty hall, or you walk in, you know, into any department store, and you can just, you know, try on. I mean, fragrances is different, but then, you know, stick your finger in pots of cream and stuff like that. I think all of that will change moving forward, and, you know, this whole, you know, the whole wellness and protectionism aspect, I think will play a huge role in the beauty industry.
Thank you, Fflur. This is to actually anyone who wants to answer. Today, a lot of businesses are leaving their offices and allowing their teams to work remotely. This will also help them to connect with our worldwide talent. Do you think this should be the new way of working for companies? I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know if I'm best placed to answer that, because I don't employ my own staff, so I think either Cath or Amy is probably best placed to answer that.
I think it's wonderful that we can work internationally. I mean, you know, I've been doing projects for the last year and a half with Japan and New York, and it works incredibly well remotely. I mean, it'll be interesting. I hope it will cut down on my travel a little bit. We're all conscious, aren't we, of trying to limit travel and so on. There is nothing like actually meeting up from time to time, but we've got to be able to change and adapt. And also, you know, to me, it's been just as good working with my staff independently in their homes now in the last 10 weeks. There's been an incredibly close camaraderie. I don't know if you've all felt this, but our teams have been the team have been so supportive and so diligent. And I'm quite amazed how the patience they've had as well, because sometimes it takes longer, and all these calls and conversations are very tiring, actually. The concentration and the level of work that's needed. So they weigh up, don't they? You know, it's great not to have to commute. It's great to be able to have a broader selection of people come in. I think we will see more of this freelance work happening that we're talking about, this gig economy. But let's hope to goodness there's a way of protecting people who work in that environment. Because I think it must be so frightening never to quite know, you know, what support you have if you're ill or what happens. We need to think as a community how you know, as a country, world, how that works. But yes, there's got to be amazing, exciting opportunities for global change with work.
Thank you. There's a question here. The luxury market can be known to sometimes not to be the most sustainable, and with increasing articles about how pandemic like the ones we are in now will only become more common with climate change. What are the best ways for luxury brands to work towards a more sustainable future?
So, you know, I can take a stab at that. For me, my lens, I always focus on the supply chain and making sure that the people in the supply chain are protected, my hope is that they're able to flourish. But at this stage, I think, you know, when we're looking at garment workers and the incredible loss of income and the fact that so many now are below poverty level, you know, the conversation, we don't necessarily even have the luxury right now at this very moment in time to talk about them flourishing. They need to be able to have sustaining income. So for me, I think the solution lies in the supply chain and making sure that every company takes full responsibility for their employees in the supply chain.
Thank you. And we are kind of running out of time, but there's an interesting question here. What lessons have the panel learned from previous experiences that are helping them as we reset for the new beginnings now? And this is for Sasha, from Sasha Young.
From an industry point of view, I think from previous experiences, if we look at other pandemics like SARS, for example, I think that changed the digital world completely in China and the way the Chinese shop. So kind of on the back of that, I think we can expect that from terms of, at least in terms of luxury retail and a lot of luxury communication, that we can definitely learn from SARS moving forward, and it'll become very, very normal moving forward that a lot of luxury is sold online, and the whole digital platforms open up a lot more.
Thank you very much. And actually, thank you very much, everybody. We kind of just passed the 2:45 time. I just want to, once again, Amy, Cath, and Fflur, thank you so much for your time and your input and your insights and your wisdom. And I'd like to hand it over to Claudia now. So thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Cath, Amy, and Fflur. And thank you all for joining. So next week on Thursday at 2 p.m, we'll have a special webinar. We'll be hosting a virtual screening of Our Planet, Our Business, a movie commissioned by WWF and inspired by the Netflix series. And following the screening, we'll discuss the film with Anya in March, the designer and founder of the eponymous brand, and two experts of the WWF team. So sign up to our newsletter today to receive your special invitation. We hope that you can make it. Thank you all for joining today, and stay safe. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.